Hello, SpongicX here, and today I am going to revisit Disney's Castle of Illusion, the remake from 2013 on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the version I'm playing is the Steam version. So I never grew up with the original Castle of Illusion. It was a Sega Genesis game, and some people have very fond memories of it. I remember I tried playing it once on an old emulator, and I lost interest right away. I just thought it was too slow and boring. However, I did play the spiritual sequel spin off called Epic Mickey Power of Illusion for 3DS. It was kind of a sequel to a Castle of Illusion, but it was a spin off to the Epic Mickey series because he had the magic paintbrush and he had his classic design that they used for Epic Mickey. And it was basically the original game, but it had a gimmick where you got to use paint and thinner using the touchscreen to paint in magic portraits. And there was like a lot of cameos from other Disney characters you had to rescue. And it was okay, but it didn't have very good replay value. It's like after you beat it, it's like, what's there left to do? So with Castle of Illusion, I remember buying this back on PC back around 2013. I played like the first level, but for some reason I played the first world, but for some reason I just never bothered revisiting the game ever since. And I kind of regret doing that though, because I just realized, wow, I still have this game and I have not played it. So I decided to do a full playthrough, and I thought it'd be fun to even do a little video playthrough of it. So um, overall, it was okay. I thought the first part of it was like the first half of it was pretty good, but once you get to World 4, that's where the game starts to get a little difficult. I mean, a little too hard for the kid demographic they're aiming for, but so the story is simple. Minnie gets kidnapped by a wannabe of the evil witch slash queen from Snow White, and Mickey has to rescue her. And so the game like the cutscenes, they are not animated. They're kind of like a storybook. A part of me kind of wishes that they were slightly animated, but I mean they have voice acting and they have a narrator, and so you'll hear the narrator throughout the game. They kind of give it like a storybook feel to the game. Every time Mickey enters the level, the narrator does commentary on the environment you're about to go through, and so it's a neat little touch. So this was a straight to digital game. It was not released in retail. It was only available on the PlayStation Store, the Microsoft Xbox Store, or Steam. And it was a $20 game. So for a $20 game, it's not bad. I mean, it's probably better value than the original game this was from. Like, I'm guessing the original was $50. So $20 for a remake is a pretty good deal. It's a relatively very short game, though. Like, it took a little over an hour to beat. A little more than that, though, if you count all the deaths and retries, because later on in the game, it does become one of those trial and error kind of games. Like, I wouldn't say it's Crash Bandicoot 4 ridiculously hard, but it gets close to that, though. Especially during the final battle. Oh my god, I died like 16 times during that probably, and no, not 6, more like 13, I don't know, but um, so I try my best to cut out all the multiple death scenes I got in this game. There are a few deaths shown in here, but I cut out most of them just to get straight to the point. Otherwise, the footage would have dragged on quite a bit. But so overall, I did enjoy the game, and a little difficult in certain areas, but still pretty fun for the most part. One thing I liked about this game, though, is how when I was a kid, there was a game on GameCube. Some of you may have heard of it. It was called Mickey's Magical Mirror. And I remember when I first saw magazine scans of that game, I thought it looked cool. It looked like a 3D platformer starring Mickey Mouse, but in the end, it was a really bad point-and-click adventure game with Mickey. And it was really stupid. Like, people have joked how it feels like a preschooler game, and the graphics on that were really ugly in motion, and, well, heck, even in still image form. But as a kid, I remember when I first heard of that game, magazines, like, when people were first hearing about the GameCube, they were speculating over the games that were presented, and one of them they said was a 3D action-adventure platformer of Mickey Mouse, and I remember seeing the screenshot, and it looked like you were controlling Mickey in a castle, and I thought that looked really cool, but in the end, that was not in the final, well, that was not the final game, that was just misinterpretation. Turns out Magical Mirror was just a point-and-click adventure game for little kids, and God, it should have been like an early childhood game or something, because it was just so boring. It was so unfun, and I hated it. I remember renting it, and I hated it. despite being such a huge Mickey Mouse fan. And so this game is kind of like a more proper version of what I thought Magical Mirror was supposed to be. I mean, God, they even added a little 3D hub world here, and so that obviously wasn't in the original Genesis game. The original Genesis game was entirely a side scroller. So for this remake, while they did try reimagining a lot of things loyally, they added a few new additions to spice things up. So there are a few little 3D segments where you get to control Mickey in multiple directions, and it kind of gives it a little bit of a flair, kind of like oh, there's the game Mickey Mania, the Sega CD port, and in not only that, but then in the UK they had a remake of that game for PS1 called Mickey's Wild Adventure. So that game was basically a time capsule of Mickey traveling through worlds inspired by the settings of old cartoons he starred in, like Steamboat Willie, The Mad Doctor, Mickey and the Beanstalk, all the way up to Prince and the Pauper from 1990. And so the game was like for Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, but it got a Sega CD version eventually, and that added some exclusive 3D segments. They had like these chase sequences where, like in Mickey and the Beanstalk and the moose hunting cartoon, where they had like a chase sequence where either Mickey was being chased by a moose or Willie the Giant from Mickey and the Beanstalk. And so I like how in this remake of Castle of Illusion they threw in some little shout outs to Epic Mickey and Mickey's Wild Adventure. Like, you actually get it in one of the early worlds. There's a part where Mickey gets chased by a giant rolling apple, and you could just tell that was heavily taken from some versions of Mickey Mania or Mickey's Wild Adventure. That's one thing I like about this game, though. It's like, it's just a real colorful fantasy kind of game. I can't say the frame rate is that great, though, but you're able to forgive it, though, because it was a straight-to digital game. And the graphics are pretty good, though, for what's a PS3 and Xbox 360, digital release. Not bad for a $20 game. I do feel like the controls could have been a little better, though. I don't know. Mickey just feels a little... It's still a huge improvement over how he felt in the original Genesis game, but he still feels a little sluggish and floaty in this game. Like, I'll even argue he was a little better to control in Epic Mickey, but it helped that he also had an attack button in that game, so... Some real Alice in Wonderland nonsense going on here.
Suddenly, Mickey was in another part of the wood. Were these gigantic trees, or had Mickey been shrunk?
Now, I do think it's cool how, like, one level feels like it links to another. I mean, this feels like a completely different level, but it's actually part of level 1 still. So, the game does not have a whole lot of worlds or levels, per se. It's very simple, and I forgot to mention, this game was developed by Sega, and you can definitely tell, because it looks like Mickey is just collecting Chaos Emeralds in this game. The main objectives are these gems, and they are just flat-out Chaos Emeralds. I wouldn't even be surprised if they stole them from a Sonic game or something, but it is interesting to know that Sega was still making a Disney licensed game back in 2013. I mean, Disney really doesn't make Disney video games anymore. I mean, Disney Interactive shut down quite a few years ago, and it seems like the only time you'll see Disney in a video game nowadays is if it's a Lego spin-off or Kingdom Hearts. Otherwise, you don't really see any of these third-party platformers of Disney characters anymore. But, yeah, I thought this was pretty decent, though. Like, this came out in an era where a lot of these platformers were either dying out or they weren't as good as they used to be. And I still had fun playing this. Like I said, I was not a fan of the original, but I enjoyed this one. But that's not to say that this game isn't perfect, though. It does have a lot of flaws. So I do like, the visuals are pretty cool, but sometimes it does not translate well into gameplay. So they try using, like, some dynamic camera angles, kind of like what they did in Kirby 64, where although you only move left and right, the camera sometimes swerves to give it more of a 3D appearance. And so that worked really well in a game like Kirby, where Kirby could, like, float in the air and stuff like that, but in a game that requires some precise platforming, that some of these swooping camera angles can get really distracting, and sometimes it can be hard to tell what's a background object and what's an interactable platform. And yeah, that's like another problem I had with a game like Crash Bandicoot 4, where it tried using all these bizarre camera angles, but in the end, it just did not match well with the collision or the controls of the characters based on the camera angles and all that. And
He was back
so
to
yeah,
his
but
size, too.
I'm not gonna lie though, I enjoyed this game more than Crash 4. Crash 4 was just so frustrating that I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it, but it's like there were parts of it I liked, but overall, it's like that's a game I don't really want to go back to and revisit anytime soon. With this game though, it's like it was still fun, and I like how they got Grant Kirkhope to do the music for this. Like I mentioned, how I wasn't a real huge fan of how the music sounded in the Genesis version. It just sounded really low quality and not like the catchy kind of low quality you get in like Sonic games on Genesis, but it just sounded really cheap. And I think Grant Kirkhope did a good job at taking pre-existing music and giving it his own flair. The music definitely resembles something you would hear in like Banjo-Kazooie or Donkey Kong 64. I do kind of wish this game had a few more Disney Easter eggs though, because I mean, if you're gonna make a video game starring Mickey Mouse with the title Disney in it, it's like you at least expect some Disney cameos or Easter eggs. Aside from the main villain looking like a ripoff of the Snow White villain, it's like there really aren't a whole lot of Easter eggs in this game. But I did notice though, it was kind of funny how at the beginning of the game you see like a cast of Mickey characters sitting in a movie theater, and so it's like you see typical characters like Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Pluto, Goofy, Pete, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, but then they also have Scrooge McDuck, and the one that surprised me the most, though, was not only do they have Chip and Dale sitting in the theater, but if you look closely, you'll see they're wearing their Rescue Rangers outfits, and it's like, that's cool. I like how they just hid that in there, and it's so not common to see the Rescue Ranger versions of Chip and Dale there. It's like anytime they use Chip and Dale nowadays, they always use their original designs. And speaking of which, I heard about the voice cast they got for the two main characters in the Chip and Dale movie they're working on, the Rescue Rangers movie, that is, and I can't remember the name, but the guy they got for Chip was actually the voice of Spider-Ham from Spider-Man Into Spider-Verse, so that's pretty interesting. And then I like who they got for Dale, though, Andy Samberg. I mean, he's a pretty goofball actor, and since Dale's a goofball character, it's like that's good casting right there. And it leaves me to wonder who they're going to get for well, it makes me wonder who they're going to get for Gadget or Monterey Jack and Zipper. I hope they still get Tress MacNeille to reprise her role as Gadget, though, and it would be cool to get Peter Collins as Monterey Jack again, and then it's like they don't need to get a big celebrity for Zipper, though. He was originally voiced by Corey Burton, the same voice as Dale, so it would feel kind of strange if they got Corey Burton just to play as Zipper, despite how they recast him for Dale. That would be kind of strange, but hopefully that movie won't be a disappointment, though. And yeah, Disney, they made a lot of announcements lately. They had some kind of convention or something, and they just they revealed a lot of their upcoming projects, and so a lot of new animated spin-offs of franchises like Moana, Princess and the Frog, Zootopia, and another Big Hero 6 TV show starring Baymax. But the one that surprised me, though, was, I mean, they really didn't show much about it, though, but considering how I hate the live-action remakes, and I saw the preview of it, and I was actually impressed with what I saw so far, despite how it was just concept art and a confirmation on who would be directing and starring in it. But so Disney's live-action remake of Pinocchio looks pretty interesting so far. I can't believe I'm saying that, but they got Tom Hanks to play as Geppetto and Robert Zemeckis to be the director. I mean, he directed Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future, Disney's Christmas Carol, Forrest Gump, and so it's like, yeah, he usually does have a knack for making some visually stunning looking films, and sometimes they can have some real dark and creepy looking moments, and so it's like, yeah, that works perfectly with Pinocchio. And the concept art looked really good, though. It looks like they're really trying to bring the movie to life. It's not like most live-action movies where they just get a random British actor and give them an outfit that doesn't even resemble the character they're playing. You know, it's like in the Beauty and the Beast remake, they got Kevin Kline to play as Maurice. Now, he's a great actor, but I don't think he was right for Maurice. I mean, in the movie, he was like, kind of like a porty old man, and it's like the town people saw him as a crazy inventor. And so with Kevin Kline as Maurice, it's like that didn't really feel like the character. He didn't look like the character. He didn't sound like the character. But anyways, the concept art for this Pinocchio trailer was pretty cool. Like they showed like what Tom Hanks would have looked like as Geppetto from a back view at least. The concept art for Pinocchio looks incredible. It doesn't look like they're trying to make him too realistic. He just looks like a toy brought to life. In real life, you could probably find sculptures of Pinocchio, and they look like they look on model to how he looked from the movie. And so I like how they're doing that for the design of Pinocchio. They're not trying to make him look ultra realistic. They're not trying to make him look too wooden and splintery. He looks just like the character from the movie, but with more detailed lighting and shading. And that's amazing. I love that. And even Jiminy Cricket, they're not going to try to make him look like a realistic cricket, luckily. He's still... Like, they did show how it seems like he does have, like, a more slender body like a cricket. He might have a few more limbs, but it's like the face, though. He still has that green color scheme. He still has the big cartoony eyes, the top hat and all that. And so it's like, I like that, how... they're making a more detailed-looking Jiminy Cricket, but they're not going to make him look like 100% like a real cricket. I mean, if he just looked like a cricket, just being, black and beady-eyed, with no fingers or anything, it's like, that would look weird. And so I like how they're trying to do a mixture of, cartoony but detailed. I mean, God, thank goodness we got movies like Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog. The revised version of Sonic the Hedgehog. That shows that not everything needs to be ultra realistic. It's like you can have a cartoony design, but give it some realistic features. It doesn't have to look entirely like a real animal. Lion King remake? Well, it's funny though, because sometimes the music also resembles the kind of music you heard from Conker's Bad Fur Day by Robin Beanland, but he wasn't the composer in this game. It was just Grant Kirkhope, but... So yeah, I can tell you, this part was definitely not in the original game. Let's see, when I played the original version of this game, I think I made it as far as the Toy Kingdom or something like that. And eventually I just lost interest in the game. It's like, this game is not for me. And I do like the setting in this game, though. It's just like feels kind of like just like a traditional European fantasy setting. You got like whimsical forests, magic toy towns, a magical library, and I don't know. I just really like the fairy tale scenery in this game. I do kind of wish there were a few levels inspired by Disney movies and stuff like that. That's one thing I loved about Epic Mickey. I mean, like how in Epic Mickey 2, you had an entire junkyard level of parade floats from Disney theme parks, and it was just fun to see like all this, or like how in the first Epic Mickey, you had the Mickey junkyard aisle or whatever, I can't remember its name, but it was just a giant junkyard of Mickey Mouse merchandise, and they were all based on actual merchandise that was sold in real life. That was really fun. It was fun to just, while you were trying to beat the game, just goof around and see all the cameos and Easter eggs you can find. And so unfortunately, this game does not have a whole lot of Easter eggs. I mean, there are a few in there that definitely weren't in the original, but still. I'm surprised they haven't tried making a modern version of Mickey Mania. Either like in a 3D platformer form or... Like, that's the thing. It's like, usually anytime Mickey gets a new game nowadays, it's almost always going to be a side-scroll or a retro game. But I mean, look at that. That's flat out a Chaos Emerald. Not to mention, there's only 7 you got to collect in the game, so... Yeah, I think I forgot to mention... I tried mentioning it earlier, but I got sidetracked. But so yeah, there are a whole lot of levels in this game. Like... Each world is split into 2 different levels, and then there's a boss fight at the end. So I just got done with the first world, because I got done with 2 levels and the boss fight. I think there's like 6 worlds altogether. 7 if you include the final battle, which is... It's treated like a separate entrance, and... First half of it is a level, but most of it is a boss fight. But I don't know why. I always loved like this kind of setting in cartoons, like or video games even, where it's just like a fantasy setting, kind of like it can be kind of dark and gothic, but still very colorful. And I thought like some Mickey Mouse cartoons were really good at that, like the Prince and the Pauper from 1990. Like I think that had a really good style. And there's just something I love Mickey Mouse cartoons that had that kind of style, like Sorcerer's Apprentice or Runaway Brain. There's just something fun about like those dark but colorful kind of cartoons, and there's just something interesting about seeing Mickey in these kind of environments.
Mickey emerged into a toy box of peril, another of the witch's illusions.
Yeah, Mickey's run animation, it definitely, like, just seeing it definitely reminds me of that quote from the episode of Family Guy, Into the Multiverse, where they were in the Disney World and Stewie was kind of running like Pinocchio, and he says, "Look how gaily we run!" I just couldn't help but think that when I saw Mickey Mouse running in this game. No. Oh, shoot. Ugh. So not only does this game have some Sonic knockoffs, but even some Mario knockoffs. I mean, those blocks with the question marks, those looked very familiar. And then some of the springs in this game, like in level 1, there were these springs you gotta jump on. Those definitely looked like the springs from Green Hill Zone and Sonic 1. Or the Sonic Genesis games, I guess. Speaking of question mark blocks, I just saw that Nintendo Direct on the reveal of Super Nintendo World, or they really should call it Super Mario World, at Universal Studios Japan, and that looks really fun. Like, it's too bad they didn't show off too many attractions. They were a little too hushity hush-hush about it, but from what they showed, though, it looks pretty fun. I mean, it doesn't look like they have a whole lot of attractions. It mostly just looks like an interactive playground, or it's cool, but that's the thing. It looks like a fun one, though. That's one I would love to walk around in someday if I could ever afford going there. Because you have no idea how much I want to. After COVID-19 clears away, that is, if it ever does. I'm just dying to go back to Florida. I've only been there once, and I want to go back there though. And I'd especially love to go there around the time Universal Studios Florida finally gets their Super Mario World, Super Nintendo World. I've never been to Universal Studios, but I've been at Disney World once, and I was only there for like 4 days, and I never wanted to leave. It was so fun. That was back around 2003. I went there around the time when Spirited Away first came out, and I remember they were still promoting upcoming Disney movies like Finding Nemo and Treasure Planet. So, yeah, that was a fun year. I mean, look at that. Those springs look like they came straight from Green Hill Zone. I always liked the Sonic Adventure designs of the springs better, where they have a more rounder shape, and then they have the little star in the center. Like there are so many people who are so nostalgic for the Genesis games, but it just looks so generic to me. I mean, those springs, they just look so bland. It just looks like a red button on a spring. I like how the Adventure series really revised them to have a more unique style. I mean, same could be said about like Mickey Mouse. So many people claim they prefer the classic Mickey Mouse art style, and that's one reason why they like those crude Mickey Mouse shorts that they make nowadays, because it looks like they're trying to inspire it by the original design, only a little cruder, and I just never really cared for that version of Mickey very much. Like, I will say it had some good shorts, though. I mean, there are definitely some memorable ones, like Mickey's Trailer, Clock Cleaners, but I just never really preferred that style. You know, I like the version that was introduced in Sorcerer's Apprentice, or like I like how Mickey looks here, and I hate how nowadays they only use that design for Mickey for preschooler shows or the Kingdom Hearts series, and it's like, why can't they make a good, decent Mickey Mouse show for all ages? I mean, they did it with Prince and the Pauper and Runaway Brain, so why can't they do it with modern Mickey? They're not afraid to take Mickey out of his comfort zone with those crude Mickey shorts where he acts like a psychotic killer at times, and I don't know. Like, I hear some people say, like, they think Mickey Mouse is boring, and that's why they like the new Mickey Mouse shorts, because, oh, it allows him to act like a psycho. That's so unlike Mickey. And it's like, you're so bored of Mickey that you're fine with seeing him act like a killer. It's like, what? I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of this modern Mickey Mouse. It's just way too wacky and way too hyper, and I just don't like seeing the characters portrayed that way. It's like the only character who can get away with acting like crazy is Donald Duck, but then when you see like even Goofy acting like that, and I don't know, just the characters constantly waving their arms around and screaming like lunatics, it's just not funny to me. Everyone else thinks it's funny to see the characters make these off-model faces, and it just annoys me, just like the modern SpongeBob does. And I mean, I'm one who can handle some hyperactive cartoon. Like, I just did a review on the Viva Pinata series, and I said that was a pretty fine series. I enjoyed that, and some people think, like there's some people who think that just cartoons where they act all hyper and silly doesn't make good entertainment, and I disagree with that. It depends on the context, though. Like, some people don't think showing a character acting all hyperactive is good animation. I disagree. It takes a lot of effort to draw a character like that, with doing so much at once, but so, you know, it depends on how well it's made, though, because some people can make it look really fluid, some people can make it look a little too choppy, but you know, it's like, I can handle cartoons like those, and there's some I like, it's just that it needs a balance. It's like, back then, it was funny when you saw SpongeBob do that occasionally, but when nowadays every episode relies too much on the characters looking off-model, making really stupid motions constantly, and it just ruins the show for me. And, I mean, that's exactly what I see at the modern Mickey Mouse shows. It's just characters acting like they have ADHD. They just cannot stay still, and it just gets annoying after a while. I never understood why people thought Mickey was a boring character. Like, yeah, I agree, he was a very basic character, but you know, usually a lot of cartoons about Mickey didn't revolve around him, though. It revolved around the insanity going on, and, like, I'll admit, like, if you watch some of the old Mickey Mouse cartoons, like some of the old black and white ones, those are really boring. I mean, almost every single one of them is the exact same thing. Like, Mickey says hi to Minnie or something, then they pull out an instrument and start doing a random dance. I mean, that's almost every single classic Mickey cartoon, and so it wasn't until, like, the Color days where they started getting a little more experimental with Mickey cartoons. And, I mean, even some of the black and white ones were very experimental, but for the most part, most of them felt very formulaic. And so, that's what I liked about the Mickey cartoons you got, like, in the 1940s. They finally tried changing things up. And so even if things weren't too interesting with Mickey, there's still always something interesting going on with the other characters, whether it was Pluto, Donald Duck, Goofy, Chip and Dale. And so that's what made the Mickey cartoons so memorable. And I just hate it when people say Mickey Mouse is boring. They think the only way to make him interesting is to make him act like a psycho. I disagree with that. Just because a character like Mickey Mouse isn't funny doesn't mean the situations that revolve around him aren't funny. I can think of plenty of Mickey Mouse cartoons where the stuff that happened to him or around him were pretty funny, whether Mickey was intentionally making it funny or not. And, I mean, he doesn't work off it as well as characters like Goofy or Donald Duck, where Goofy is just oblivious to the stuff that goes on around him, where Donald is, you know, always getting angry about it. And so, yeah, like Mickey, he can be, you know, very casual about stuff that's going on, but even Mickey has his limits. There are times where he can get angry or confused, but you can definitely agree that the other characters were better at doing that. But it just saddens me, though, that over the years, like, when Walt Disney was still alive, he even kind of neglected Mickey, to the point where he was putting more focus on even his dog, Pluto. Pluto arguably started more cartoons than Mickey Mouse, and especially Donald Duck. Donald Duck was obviously Walt's favorite. I mean, but then you watch all these cartoons, and they treat Donald Duck like the Daffy Duck of the series. You know, because Daffy was originally a very popular Looney Tunes character until Bugs Bunny was invented. And especially when Chuck Jones started taking over some Looney Tunes cartoons, he definitely transformed Daffy by making him a bitter, jealous rival of Bugs. And so I like how a lot of modern Mickey Mouse cartoons from the 90s and stuff like that tried portraying it, or heck, even as far back as the Mickey Mouse Club's intro. You know, they tried acting like Mickey was the favorite and Donald is the one that no one likes. But it's like quite the opposite, though. Donald is the one that everyone loved. And so why is the universe of Disney acting like nobody loves Donald? It was far from it. Yeah, it took me a while to figure out how to do this one, but I eventually noticed the mirror in the background, and it's like, oh, okay. The mirror shows the true platforms. There's a bunch of dummies. Yeah, I remember something similar like this happened in Sonic Adventure during Amy's version of Twinkle Park, when you're in the giant mirror room. And except here it's with a giant checkered board. I still think they need to make a Disney fighting game someday. Like a Smash Brothers clone with Disney characters. That would be fun.
Into a new corner of the Castle of Illusion ran Mickey. But what was that odd green box?
Unfortunately, Disney was never, especially with the Mickey Mouse license, they were never really good at making spin-offs. Especially ones that revolved around multiplayer. Because I remember I once had the Disney Party game on GameCube. I bought it for $10 back then. And that was so bad. That was so unplayable. It was, oh my god, I hated that game. I can't think of a single Disney spin-off of the Mickey Mouse license that was good. It's like most any good Disney game is mostly a single-player experience. Like the original Epic Mickey, or... I mean, even Epic Mickey is a flawed game, but at least it, you know, at least it had a memorable story, and then the sequel, well, not perfect. Like, I think it had moments, but overall it is a pretty flawed game. It was still a neat concept, though, and I still wish we could have got that third one. I did hear there were rumors, though, that there might be a third Epic Mickey game in the works, but it would obviously be by a different studio, because... the original developers, Junction Studio, were closed down after the failure that was Epic Mickey 2. So this is another game where Grant Kirkhope had to compose music for a boss fight against a giant, creepy Jack-in-the-Box. First one being Donkey Kong 64. I swear, Grant Kirkhope, he must have inspiration from Danny Elfman, because there's something about, like, some of his modern games, like... when he got past the N64 era and started using more orchestric-sounding instruments, it's like you can definitely hear a little bit of inspiration from Danny Elfman with his style. Like, I especially remember noticing that in games like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and I can kind of hear it here, and I even heard a little bit of it in Ukulele. It's funny how far Grant Kirkhope went, though, because I remember, like, when he went straight off N64 and off to his first Xbox project, Grabbed by the Ghoulies, back in 2003. I think it was 2000... no, I can't remember what year it was, but... early 2000s, though, Xbox era. His music still sounded like it came straight from an N64 game, despite how the graphics of the Xbox were a huge improvement. off its sound quality, and it wasn't until the Xbox 360 with Viva Pinata where his music was just so much better. It was almost unrecognizable. It was hard to, like, Viva Pinata had such whimsical, calming sounding music, and I just revisited Trouble in Paradise recently, and it's just such soothing music to listen to. It's just so surprising when you remember that was made by the composer of Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64.
As Mickey surveyed this new world, he noticed colossal storm clouds gathering in the skies. Hopefully the rain would hold off long enough for him to make it back to the castle.
Now this music here really reminds me of Donkey Kong 64. It reminds me of Creepy Castle. Well, Christmas is coming up real soon. As of the day I'm recording this video, it's December 19th. So I'm hoping by then I'll be able to do a review of Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, because that was the game I asked for on my list, and I'm really looking forward to that, though. I heard it reviewed really well, and I've been avoiding spoilers for that game, so I heard, like, not much was revealed about it, which is fine, but I still thought the gameplay was really fun. I remember playing the demo, and I'll definitely be recording footage of that and sharing my playthrough of it. I'm also hoping to get Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. If I get both, though, I'm probably going to do Kingdom Hearts first. Now, once again, I really know nothing about Age of Calamity. All I know is that everyone dies in the end, but that was pretty predictable because it was a prequel to the events of Breath of the Wild, where it was already established that everyone died. Everyone but Zelda. So a little off topic, but I just felt like I would share it since nothing else is really going on at the moment. But so yeah, they added a new playable character to Super Smash Bros. Recently, and you can unlock him early if you manage to beat him in a little limited time challenge before December 25th. You have to at least have paid for him first, like pre-ordered or bought the Smash Season 2 pass first, but the Fighter Pass, but. So, Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII was added to the roster recently, and I think he is the third out of 6 character added out of Wave 2, and when they first announced him, well, I'll admit the trailer was really cool. I was really underwhelmed. With the announcement, though. It's like, another anime-looking sword wielder. Are you kidding me? But, so after playing him a little bit, I'll admit, Sephiroth was a neat addition to the series, though. So it's like, obviously he has the longest sword out of the characters, and he has really slow movements, but his attack speed is pretty swift at times, and like he physically moves really slow, but so he's probably one of the fastest heavy wielders, you know. It's like he moves really slow, but he attacks real fiercely, and He was pretty fun to control though, and I loved how his classic mode was just a giant boss rush mode where he fights off all the other villains of the series, in boss form, that is. So he won't fight off like regular Bowser or Ganondorf, but he does fight off their boss form versions like Giga Bowser and Beast Ganon. And so, yeah, it was really fun how they had that mode that allowed people who pre-ordered to unlock him 5 days early. And they even added more Final Fantasy VII music tracks, something that was heavily missing when even Cloud was first added in the Wii U and 3DS version. And the new stage is pretty cool. So far, I'd say Sephiroth is the only good new addition out of the Season 2 Fighter Pass, because I was not a huge fan of, what was her name, Mei Mei from ARMS, and I especially did not care for Steve from Minecraft. He was just such a joke character. Like, I never even heard a single person defend him. Like, I heard people were excited when he was announced, but it's like, after that, it's like, people were too ashamed to admit that they did not like him or something, but it must be the case, though, because I've seen some people imply that he was a useless waste of a slot of a character or something, and so far I was not impressed with any of the DLC fighters except for Banjo-Kazooie, so it's nice to finally get another character who I can play as and say, yeah, it was a neat addition. I may not have been too excited for him at first, but after playing as him, it's like, okay, Sephiroth wasn't a bad choice. Only 3 characters left. Oh boy. In case you're wondering, who did I use to defeat Sephiroth? I beat him with Banjo and Kazooie. So, I first fought him on easy mode, and then I tried it on normal difficulty, and I beat him both on my first try. And then I tried very hard mode, and I'll admit I did not accomplish that, and you don't really get anything for doing it anyways, and it's a limited time event anyway, so I'm not gonna bother. But I did attempt a few times, though. I tried as Banjo-Kazooie, like, for 3 tries, and died miserably. I tried doing it with King K. Rool, then Ridley, and I gave up eventually, but it was still a fun challenge while it lasted.
The more sure he was that something or someone was watching him.
So, did anyone with Disney Plus watch the Season 2 finale of The Mandalorian? Oh man, that was so good. I am not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I've got to say, The Mandalorian is the best thing to come out of the Star Wars franchise, and that Season 2 finale was so good. I'll admit, Season 2, it started off really slow, though. I thought the first 3 or 4 episodes were kind of forgettable. They really didn't go much anywhere, but I'd say it wasn't until the episode where they introduced Ahsoka where the series started getting good again, and man, they really delivered in that final episode. That was so good. As for, I don't think the show is over with, though, but it's definitely going to be a little different from now on if it continues on. But yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but that reveal at the end, who showed up, and that was so good. And then, of course, the teaser, after the credits, and that was so bizarre. I'm glad I, stuck around for that, because most every episode does not have any post-credit scenes. They do have some real gorgeous motion artwork that recaps the episode, though, during the credits. So I'd even stick around for the credits, even during the normal episodes, but so I noticed this time, there weren't any pictures this time to recap what happened. It made me wonder, are they going to have like some kind of Marvel-esque teaser at the end? And yep, they did. Not going to spoil it, but let's just say there's another spin-off coming out December 2021, they said. And they didn't confirm if it was going to be a movie, a special, or a new series entirely, but sounds interesting, though. I love the teaser. And yeah, Mandalorian Season 2, that was such a great finale. I loved it. Dang. So apparently Mickey can magically breathe underwater. Was he really at any risk in the Sorcerer's Apprentice then? This boss fight was a little tricky at first. I barely made it out alive.
For safety, but found none. Suddenly, the entire chamber flooded. Had our heroes locked.
God, that doesn't even look like a Disney character. That looks almost like a robot from Mega Man. Something about the eyes. The eyes and the shape. It looks more like one of those robot bosses. Yeah, one thing I absolutely hate about this game is that even when you die and you respawn, it does not give you a full set of health. So, like, you're in a boss fight, you see how Mickey has 5 stars to represent his health, but it always respawns you with 3. I hate that. That's so stupid. And then this is one of those games that really shows how obsolete lives are, because even if you lose all your lives and choose continue, it just takes you back to the beginning of the boss fight. It's not like there are any checkpoints in the boss fight, so it makes you wonder, what was the point of the lives if losing them just causes you to respawn at the last checkpoint anyways? And it's reasons like this where I'm glad that lives aren't a real priority anymore, and it makes me frown whenever a game still uses them. At least Crash Bandicoot 4 made them optional, but then, I don't know, I'm just so sick of lives in video games. It's so unnecessary. I mean, I like how some games in the 90s finally figured that out. I mean, I previously said in a previous video that, I accidentally said that I think, Banjo-Tooie was the first game to do that, where it got rid of lives, and no, I was wrong. Both Rayman 2 and Donkey Kong 64 abandoned the life systems. But then games like Conker's Bad Fur Day still used them, Sonic Adventure still used them, Mario Sunshine, and so on. And it wasn't until, like, I'd say it wasn't until Super Mario Odyssey and Sonic Forces where it felt like they were finally realizing how obsolete lives are again. I mean, I wouldn't say Sonic Forces was a good example of that, though, but Mario Odyssey definitely was.
I got a Chaos Emerald! Haha! Mickey thought of Minnie. Once he had all the...
Now, where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald?
Boots by now. Mickey had the 3rd rainbow gem, and he was determined to get the other 4. The Rainbow Bridge to Minnie would only appear when all 7 rainbow gems were collected. There was still work to be done.
Oh boy, World 4. This is where the game starts to get a little more difficult. Like, I'd say this had one of the hardest boss fights in the game next to the final boss, of course, but here's where the game starts to feel a little more like a traditional Crash Bandicoot game. So at first, I thought the timing in this game was just right. It's like, you know, you could be patient enough to, jump across, like, certain timed motion platforms and all that, but here is where things start to get a little more, you know, testing your patience and where you have to act a little faster, and I don't know. It gets especially worse in the final level before the final battle. Like, that is, like, where you gotta time everything perfectly, and if you slip up, there is no correcting yourself. You're forced to start over. Am I in Canada? Because I'm hearing a lot of things say, hey, all of a sudden. So that was probably my first death in this game.
Suddenly, Mickey was not alone. Mickey was in a realm of dangerous delight.
Oh no, he's in Sugar Rush.
Scares. All around was a sea of ice-cold milkshake, but not the sort one wanted to dive into.
So at first I was thinking, was that like a giant octopus with the licorice? And that's actually a dragon, though. Eventually you fight a dragon, and it's like, that was like when they had like a big boss reveal that was about to be revealed at the final act of this level. I was thinking, okay, it's gonna be a giant licorice octopus, and it's like, nope. Instead, it's a red licorice dragon. Okay, did not see that coming. Yeah, just a heads up, I'm not going to bother doing a 100% run of this game, and I don't even plan to go back to try doing it either. I just want to make it to the end of the game, and that's it. There are a few rewards you get for collecting everything, though. Not only do you get a few collectible statues that decorate the castle, but the hub world, but you also get some unlockable outfits for Mickey. And you get one of them for beating the game normally, which is Mickey dressed as a knight. And then the two other ones are pretty strange. There are these hidden items you can find. Like, some of them are like these hot peppers of Donald Duck for some reason, and collecting all of those, I believe, gives you a costume of Mickey dressed as a safari explorer. And then there are these magic cards you can find. There's 5 of them altogether hidden throughout the levels, and collecting all those gives you Magic Mickey. So at first you're thinking, ooh, is that Sorcerer Mickey? And no, it's just Mickey wearing a top hat and a tuxedo. It's like, that was underwhelming. They should have had Sorcerer Mickey being in this game, but... So the only costume I was able to unlock was the knight costume. Changing costumes is pretty pesky in this game, though. You have to go to, like, this magic mirror on the top floor of the castle, and when you stand in front of it, it shows a reflection of Mickey wearing a different outfit. However, the way to navigate the different outfits is to keep walking away from the mirror, then walking in front of it for it to change. So there's no proper navigational, like, directional arrows to switch between the costumes. You just gotta keep walking from the mirror and leaving the mirror. Then reapproach it just to see it change. That's a pretty stupid way to change your costume, but luckily there's not a whole lot of costumes in this game. There's only 3 additional costumes to choose from, so there's only 4 appearances for Mickey altogether. There's his regular outfit, his safari outfit, his magic outfit, and his knight outfit. I'm just gonna say the outfits in Epic Mickey 2 were much more interesting. You had, like, all these costumes that were actually based on past Mickey, designs and stuff like that. Where here, they just felt like they chose casual designs for Mickey to wear. They don't feel like they were inspired by a past appearance. I mean, yeah, there were shorts where Mickey did wear a magic hat and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like they were intentionally trying to mock that, though. Or, pay tribute to that. And where Epic Mickey 2, you had, like, the brave little tailor, Sorcerer Mickey. And you just, heck, even with Oswald, you had Tron Oswald, where he was dressed like a Tron character. That was pretty funny. And, yeah, Epic Mickey 2 definitely had the better alternate costumes. Yeah, I knew that was too good to be true. There's no way the gem would have been available at, like, the end of the first level.
Grabbed the gem and made a culinary escape.
However, they did fool me in the 5th world, though. You actually got to collect 2 gems in that world, and one of them was in the first level. Right at the end, there was a gem, and I was like, okay, what bullshit excuse is going to cause Mickey to lose it this time? And nope, it just let me collect it. And it's like, okay. So obviously the game's developers were too lazy to make a sixth world for the game, so they just put 2 gems in one world. But you could blame that on the original creators of the game, though, not just Sega and whoever was responsible for this remake. But I'm not sure who made the original version of Epic Mickey. Castle of Illusion. Like, I know it was for Sega Genesis, but I don't think Sega was the developer, though. And so it's interesting how Sega was the publisher for this remake. So yeah, here's where the game starts to get a little more difficult.
Not again.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, but I like how in each world Mickey's power-ups are different. Like, kind of like in the Aladdin video game, how he got to collect apples and throw them. So in the first level in this game, you collect apples and throw them. And if I'm not mistaken, in the original game, all your projectiles were just apples, but they changed them up for levels. So like in the Toy Kingdom, you threw marbles. And I can't tell what it is you throw in this level. I think they're still marbles, but... I know like in one, there's that one underwater level, the temple level, and you threw golden balls or pieces of gold in that one, and the final world you throw candles for some reason.
Usually Mickey enjoyed tea, but he might just stick to orange juice from now on.
Whoop.
Mickey had the distinct feeling he was being lured into a trap.
No, you don't say. Ah. Damn bookworms. Ah, damn it.
Oh, come on. Stand still, why don't you?
Oh shit!
It's coming.
Ah, dang. Damn sugar cubes. Let's try that one last time.
Finally, the green rainbow gem was his. Mickey'd endured a lot of taunting from his pesky shadow, so he couldn't resist doing a little taunting of his own.
Oh man, I hated this boss fight.
Sugar-coated shock from this confectionery world.
I mean, the design is cool. It's just a dragon made of red licorice, but man, the difficulty here really spikes.
Fourth master of illusion.
Best advice I have is wherever he threw the last cookie, aim towards that platform, because the chances are the next cookie he throws will not land on that spot. Still hard to predict where he's gonna throw like the first cookie sometimes. You can just try hopping to a different platform and then it just hits you out of nowhere. And yeah, I died multiple times during this. I probably died like 5 times maybe. And unfortunately, this game has unskippable cutscenes, so that's real frustrating when you get to the final battle. You're forced to watch the same opening dialogue of the witch taunting you, and then how Minnie's begging you to help her. And it's like, oh, can I just skip this?
Gem in hand, there were only 2 more to find, and then Mickey could search for the most precious jewel of all, his sweetheart, Minnie. Mickey had managed to secure both the 4th and 5th rainbow gems, but was he running out of time? Could he still get to Minnie before it was too late?
Why are you asking me?
Mickey chanced upon an enchanted mirror. In its reflection, he saw himself, but wearing far more magical clothes.
So the castle, this has some tricky platforming moments as well.
Mickey raced into the castle.
Arguably, this has the easiest boss fight in the game, though. I don't think I got hit at all during the boss fight in this level, but I like how there's a random Goofy portrait in the background to the left there.
These suits aren't very suitable.
And there it is again.
Mickey traveled deeper into the castle dungeons.
Now this part probably would have been a little easier if the platforms were more spread apart and the camera angle wasn't so weird during this. But once again, the platforming in this area definitely reminds me a lot of both Mickey Mania and Mickey's Wild Adventure. There are levels inspired by both the Mad Doctor and the Prince and the Pauper, and they had a very similar concept where you're in like a spiral towered room and you have all these wooden plank platforms you gotta jump on, and even the final act before the final boss fight really does resemble that even further, because in that you actually are towering a giant stone tower with the wooden platforms. This is a real frustrating part of the game. I died quite a number of times during this, so I just skipped ahead to where I finally got it right. But like this part right here isn't too bad. It's once you get to the top of it though, and when you die, there's no checkpoint, so you're forced to go all the way back to the bottom and rework your way up there. And So like I said, getting up there isn't the hard part. It's once you get up there, though, that's really tricky. It's one of those things where something just bumps into you off screen and you don't realize what hit you, but you died all of a sudden. It's like, what? Yeah, I remember like when I first did this, I got hit by a giant rolling boulder. It just came out of nowhere, though. It's like, what the hell? And that's why I prefer 3D platformers. Because side-scrollers, too many things can just come flying at you out of nowhere. And it doesn't give you enough fair reaction time to jump. You really gotta die at that first and then learn from trial and error. And I don't like that. I like games where it can still be challenging, but it's possible to beat it on your first try. I don't think there's anything fun about wasting so many hours or so many minutes getting so far into a level just to die at last minute because of a cheap tactic or obstacle, and that's no fun for me. Some people get real kicks out of those kind of brutal frustration. I don't think it's fun at all. I only got one game over in this game, and that was during the final battle. And it worried me at first, though. I almost thought I was going to have to throw my controller aside and say, I'm done with this game. But because, there's a lengthy level sequence you had to go through before the final battle. And then once you get past that, that's when the final battle starts. So I feared that getting a game over would have forced me to start the entire level over, but luckily enough, it made me just go back to the beginning of the final battle instead. And it's one of those battles where it's got multiple attack phases but no checkpoint. So if you die, you're forced to start over. So I thought getting a game over would have forced me to have to start the entire level over, and no, I just had to start the boss fight over. Thank goodness. Now, arguably, the boss fight itself is pretty short, though, but it is pretty difficult. You're only given 3 HP, and the main boss has, 6 hit points, and she has a lot of hard-to-dodge attacks, and requires a lot of timing, and it's pretty tricky. We'll get to that soon, though.
The wonders in the treasure room were marvelous to behold.
So yeah, I was surprised that wasn't a trap there. You just see one of the gems lying in the open, and you think right when you approach it, some kind of enemy or trap would trigger, and nope, it just lets you collect it. It's like, huh, okay, cool.
Gosh, how big is this castle?
Oh, this level's pretty hard too. Yeah, this game does not have the best swimming controls. And these fishbone enemies are real pesky. I wouldn't bother going for that one up. It's a trap. Damn fish.
Miserable wasn't playing by any rules now, thought Mickey, as he tumbled into a pitch-black castle corridor.
Hey, where'd the lights go?
damn it. I tried moving upward. Like, I was thinking this was going to be one of those 3D roaming segments, and instead it was a side-scroller, so I just died right when that boulder showed up. Ah!
Every bone in his body told Mickey that the ghostly gloop was far more dangerous than it looked.
Yeah, for a kid game, this is pretty hard sometimes, especially in the later levels. It's probably even more frustrating on the Genesis version, I can imagine.
Emerging from the dungeon,
I'll bet on the Genesis, it was one of those games where getting a game over forces you to start all the way at level 1. So at least this game has checkpoints and replay value.
as he made his way to the top.
I like games where after you beat a level, you're free to go back and revisit it whenever you want. I hate it when games have it where it's like, oh, once you pass that level, you're going to have to get a game over and start all over if you want to go back there. It's like, screw that. Yeah, this level can be a little tricky to figure out. Like some of these gear segments, it's hard to tell what direction to head next. It doesn't help that some of the platforms in the foreground kind of blend in with some of the stuff going on in the background. So it's a little harder to tell what's supposed to stand out as a platform and what's just a background object. Like here, it's not so bad, but it's once you get to this point where I was stuck at first. I was like, what am I supposed to do here? Then eventually I realized, oh, you're supposed to try to jump up there. And that wasn't even the hardest part. It gets a little trickier after this. So after that, I was expecting a really hard boss fight, and surprisingly, this is the easiest boss in the game.
Mickey thought the danger of being squished.
This bell ringer, he feels like a cross between Willy the Giant and Quasimodo,
The oafish clockmaker was the final master.
except with darker hair. But my god, this was surprisingly so easy that I don't even think I got hit by him once. And that's one reason why the final boss was a little trickier, because a lot of the bosses in this game were very repetitive. They kept doing the same move over and over. And so, with the final boss, Miserabelle, she actually does change up her attack patterns, and she really spices it up during the last act. And so, yeah, it's real easy to let your guard down during that. I mean, even that dragon boss, as tricky as it was, at least its pattern, you know, was memorable after a while. It's like it was hard at first, but eventually you figure out its pattern. And here, it's like I was able to figure out the pattern without getting hit. I didn't have to worry about, you know, struggling at all during this. I was able to figure it out pretty quickly.
The oafish clockmaster's hour of terror was at an end. The final violet gem was Mickey's.
So, do I turn into Super Mickey now, or... Nope. Bummer.
Mickey had acquired all the rainbow gems. Now he could
Cough,
cross
Chaos
the
Emeralds,
Rainbow
cough,
Bridge
cough.
and save his dearest Minnie. Onto the castle battlements raced Mickey. An eerie chill overcame him as he beheld the tall tower. He knew it was the heart of Mizrabel's power.
That feels like a rip-off of how you got to Ganondorf's castle in Ocarina of Time. You had to form a rainbow bridge. Nothing says entrance to a dark, creepy castle like a bright rainbow bridge. Okay, so this part was a little tricky. Like, there aren't really a lot of checkpoints, and it's real easy to mess up here, and... Like, luckily, falling off doesn't cause you to lose a life, but it does cause you to lose a health bar. But, of course, once you lose all 3 HP, or 5 HP, depending on how much you get, yep, you lose a life then, but you don't lose a life from cliff falls unless it takes off your last HP. And so yeah, this part takes a lot of trial and error. It expects you to act way too quickly, you know, at things that just come out of nowhere. Like, I'm surprised I made it there. Oh, yeah. Ah! Okay, here we go. You have no idea how many times I had to rewatch this stupid cutscene over and over. Trying to... hard to say how long it took me to get this defeated, but it took me quite a while. I probably lost like 13 lives during this part. This was my first game over here. So I skipped ahead to where I finally was able to beat her. Really? Here I was expecting she's going to turn into the Maleficent dragon or something. Instead, she just turns into a parody of the Wicked Queen with Maleficent powers, though. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the original version of this game's final battle, she was a shapeshifter, so she kept turning into different Disney villains, basically, and I don't think they did that for the remake. And now, I don't know if that's for sure, but I remember looking at a sprite sheet once, and I remember there was a sprite sheet for a character named Mizrabel, and you saw her as, like, the Maleficent dragon, and, of course, the old hag, and then the queen form, and so, yeah, it seems like, I'm not sure, maybe that was something else, but I could have sworn that she was a shapeshifter during this, but here she just uses all these conjured spirits and ghosts to attack you. It's really tricky, though. I mean, these ghost attacks are pretty hard to dodge at times, and it doesn't help that the Terran keeps collapsing, and you only got 3 HP. Even when you die and respawn, you don't get a full set of health. You're still stuck with 3 HP. That really sucks. Hate how you have to keep watching the cutscenes and you have to keep listening to our stupid spell chants over and over. This boss fight was just annoying to get through. I almost thought I wasn't gonna make it, but managed to do it on this round, though.
Apparitions soar from your crypt, confuse his mind, boggle his grip, wind about him to and fro, steal from him all that he knows. End him now!
Okay, here we go. Final hit. This is arguably the trickiest round. Here, she'll throw multiple spells at you instead of just one, like usual. It's like she'd use one spell a few times, but here she switches them up in the middle of an attack.
Phantoms and ghosts in grim collusion, band together in my castle illusion. Here,
So yeah, I definitely died at there first because here she's using the spinning attack, but then she's also using the projectile drop attack. And man, I got so lucky here. I am so glad I dodged that last attack. Otherwise, I would have had to start all over once again. Mizrabel is finally defeated, and the game is over. Except for the final cutscene and the credits.
Mizrabel was dazed, but for how long? Suddenly, Mickey had an idea. What if he launched the rainbow gem at the witch? It might be his one and only chance.
take that!
Time
Take that! Ha ha!
to freeze for a moment before the gem burst into a cascade of rainbow light, filling every inch of the tower.
Ooh, so did Mickey just kill a witch?
To be the fairest of them all!
It was the cruel witch's turn to be trapped and powerless, encased in the spreading light.
Oh,
Terrible
that was
spell
anticlimactic.
broken. Minnie was free at last, and Mizrabel wilted and shriveled back to her true form. Minnie threw her arms around Mickey, and as he hugged her, he vowed never.
Well, that's Mizrabel's true form. Well, it's still less ugly than the original hag from Snow White.
The castle
She looks more like an adorable version of the old hag.
way out. What was this? Mizrabel was helping them escape? Mickey didn't have time to consider if this was another trick. Mickey and Minnie each held onto a broomstick and flew for their lives.
Jeez, calm down, Minnie.
Had wisdom enough to know when she was defeated and why that was so. She had learned that there's a magic more powerful than any.
Oh boy,
she
here's the
had
generic power of love
Mickey and
ending.
Minnie knew it well, and even after what she had put them through,
What is this, an
they
anime?
shared its secrets with her. Now, Mizrabel's heart was filled with a different kind of magic, the magic of love.
Blech. Well, for a game with such a brutal difficulty, it had a pretty cheesy ending, huh?
The end.
And that was Castle of Illusion. So it was fun at first, but it definitely got a little frustrating towards the last half. But it was still a pretty interesting game, a nice little nostalgic throwback to some of the old Genesis games with a few little modern touches here and there. And yeah, it's not bad for a $20 game. I don't regret playing it though, but man, it's like I wish it was a little easier though. And not a huge fan of those like real brutal, challenging platformers, but. So the rest of it is mostly just a credits reel, and then I decided to try out the unlockable outfit of Mickey as a knight at the end. But other than that, there's really nothing else to show. So I think I'm just going to wrap it up a little early, so you can feel free to torture yourself and watch the credits all you want. But so yeah, of course, this game doesn't have a huge voice cast though. Like I was wondering though. Okay, we already know who voiced like Mickey and Minnie in this. So this was the late Rusty Taylor. Voicing Minnie still, and then they had the voice of Mickey from like the later Kingdom Hearts games after Bert Allwine died, or Wayne Allwine, I mean. So I was wondering though, who voiced Mizrabel? And so the witch version of her at the beginning was voiced by Nika Futterman, otherwise Styx the Badger from Sonic Boom. And it's like, huh, interesting. Other than that, there aren't a whole lot of voice actors in this game, and I don't even think they mentioned who did the narrator, but oh well. But because it said there were only 4 voice actors in this game, and so one of them was Nika Futterman as the old witch, and then I think they had a different voice for her queen-like form. But other than that, that was Castle of Illusion. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Have a great day.
Nothing could be left to chance in the Castle of Illusion. Mickey knew he should leave no task undone.